I've seen it so many times where women start to shine or make more money all of a sudden than their husbands, and the husband feels a certain way. Or
you make more money than you, great. It's
Amen.
Funding the mission.
Yes.
What does that have to do
yes.
with anything?
She understands because we're equally yoked. We understand that Jesus is at the center of our relationship. It's easier to navigate those types of conversations. And we believe that the Bible is the book that's going to guide us through life. And we believe that it's the full truth, not partial truth. So now when you have this conversation, it's almost like a cheat code. What does God say about this?
What's going on, Wealthy Kingdom? This is Chris coming to you again with another edition of the Wealthy Kingdom podcast. Now, we have a special guest on today because not only is he a part of Wealthy Kingdom, he's also the partner for the Pro Host program. I don't even know if the term super host when it comes to doing Airbnbs fits him. I'm not sure because he's on another level, to be honest with you. If you've been a part of any of his calls, if you've seen any of the content that he's put out, I mean, what is a super host to someone who's doing it on a high level? But many of you may know him. Again, he is one of the partners for Ryan for the Pro Host community. We have the infamous, the famous Ivan Tejeda. Tejeda. You got to put that on it. Now, if any of you are all of my melanin people out there, if I said that wrong, I'm sorry. I apologize. I tried. But I'm happy to have you on the podcast.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me, man.
Good stuff.
Appreciate
now,
it.
we got a chance to meet. It hasn't even been a year yet.
No.
It hasn't been a year yet. And I feel like there's so much that I want to know about you and just how you get to this point. So let's just kind of start there. Like, you're a man of God. You've got your own business. You've got a family, beautiful children, beautiful wife. Like, how do we get to this point?
I mean, thank you. Yeah. It's a lot to unpack now when you like put it all into perspective. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I was raised in Dominican Republic, between Dominican Republic and Miami, but my childhood, most of it was in Dominican Republic with my grandparents. We lived in a house that was I had an uncle, an aunt, my grandparents. Oftentimes it was my brother and then a couple other cousins. So it was a family that was always it was a very full house all the time.
Wow.
And at the time, I would say that we, in Dominican Republic, we were pretty much like middle class in Dominican Republic, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing, we never lacked any food or a roof over our head or anything like that. However, we weren't, afforded the luxuries of life, right? Especially, in a somewhat third world country, right? But we always knew English because I was born actually in Boston, Massachusetts, which not a lot of people know. They always think that I'm Dominican.
Okay, you mentioned that. So, how does this, tell me, please,
right?
How does this work?
So we ended up, I was born in Boston. However, maybe not even a year into my life, they moved to DR.
Okay.
And then from there, we kind of bounced around for quite some time. So I actually did school in Dominican Republic and some school in Miami as well.
Okay.
Right? Now, my mom, she was trying, my parents divorced when I was really young. And my mom was trying to make, a life for us in the States, right? So she would move to Miami and we stayed with our grandparents a big part of our childhood. Okay. And she would obviously visit and send us a Nintendo 64s and the PlayStations, and we had the scooters. So we had some of the benefits of the U.S. life, but living in DR. So I had an amazing childhood. It was one of those childhoods that's minimalistic, but the type that we would literally have fun with a pile of dirt that was placed there to build a new building or something. Yeah. We just pack it down and we'll ride with our bikes on it, do all these crazy things. So that taught me many things, is that, you don't really need a lot to feel happy as long as you're around the same people. As far as faith goes and, all of that, my grandparents, just the religion of denomination usually is Catholicism in Dominican Republic. That's really what most people are over there.
Okay. So
we would go on Sunday sometimes, not always. So that was kind of instilled. My mom has always been a woman of faith and, knowing there's a higher power and all of that. But she had a journey as well of really finding out, her purpose and, where to lean on and where to find God and all these things. So we were mostly raised Catholic, right? And then eventually, fast forward to freshman year of high school, we finally made our way back to Miami, and that's when we stayed in Miami.
Okay.
And then we lived with, my mom, and it was my brother, my mom, my stepdad at the time. And we that's when we kind of got introduced to like Christianity.
Okay.
And my mom, and not right away at the beginning, it was, still Catholicism. And then she finally found another church that was, Christian. And I was never really like involved in the church like that. I would go because my mom would go. Yeah. And I was just there. And, there was this I think it was spring break. Miami spring breaks are epic, like spring breaks.
So I've heard.
I
didn't get to experience that, but I've heard.
Yeah. So Miami spring breaks are a big deal, right? And then I remember this one time, I think I want to say it was maybe my junior or sophomore year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, for whatever, I didn't have because a lot of people have a rock bottom moment where they feel like they lead to God because they had such a bad time or whatever. They went through something so tragic that he was like, I need to go to God, or they go the opposite route.
Yeah.
I didn't really have either of those. For me, it was like I kept living this life. I was out in the clubs. I was young, getting fake IDs to go into the clubs in Miami. I was, drinking underage and all these things. I never got into drugs, thank God. Like I never, caught an STD or anything like that, right? But I was very much in that life and really just enjoying as a kid. And then I always felt out of place though. Like all of my friends, they would have an amazing time and I would pretend to have an amazing time too. But I was that dude in the club that was kind of just hanging out. I had my drink in my hand and, whatever. I wasn't really trying to get with girls and all these things, even though I was always around beautiful girls. And I don't know what it was that every time, and I've never said this in the podcast, so I guess it would be the first time.
Let's go.
But
Wealthy Kingdom exclusive coming in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Yeah. So if for whatever the reason, and now I know it was God, but every time that something was going to go about, like maybe gonna smash, like get with a girl or something like that. And of course, I'm using the terminology that I would have used back there, smash. I don't even think people use that anymore. But every time.
I don't even want to know.
You want to know?
Let's not even try to find. Don't text us either and tell us. We don't need to know.
I don't. But every time something was gonna, happen, for whatever reason, it would just fall through. Either like my car broke down or, I don't know. Something would always happen. I never really drove myself. I always went with my friends because they had the nicer cars and all these things.
Yeah.
So I would just ride with them for the most part. So I was, reliant on what they wanted to do a lot of the times. But for whatever the reason, it just never happened. For whenever something could go really bad, God's hand was there. And then in hindsight, looking back, I knew that it was just my mom's prayers because every time I would go out, she didn't want to keep me constrained because she knew that what that could cause, right? Like rebellion and all these different things, and I could take it to another level. But at the same time, she was relentless with her prayers. And to this day, I say that that's the reason why I'm even here today, because God knows where I would have been if it wasn't for her prayers, because she was always praying for us. I remember sneaking out of the house multiple times. I got caught one time. I would literally, it was a two-story home, and in the bathroom window was literally, I kid you not, maybe 2 feet high, maybe 1 foot wide, and I would sneak out through there onto like a little roof and then onto my neighbor's fence and then down at 11 o'clock at night.
Because I'm about to ask, because I've always been, well, I haven't always been. The majority of my childhood, all of my childhood, what am I talking about? Is here in Vegas. And so our houses are like boxes. Yeah. They don't have like the roof. So I'm like, how were you getting out the second floor and you didn't like fall?
Oh no. So that bathroom window led to the roof of where the garage was. Mm-hmm. So I would just jump out of the window onto the garage roof, onto the side of that fence of my neighbor, and then on the floor, and then my friend would pick me up and then we would just ride.
Are you going back in the house the same way?
No.
How are you going back in the house?
I'm going through the front door at that point.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Hey, Okay. It's your mama house.
Yeah.
You go out
the window.
Leave. You're totally in the wrong here. Leaving out the side bathroom door.
Yeah.
But when you come home,
you're
going straight through the front door.
Yeah. The reason why is because at that time, they're still in their bedroom and then they can hear me if I go downstairs. I had like really squeaky stairs. Mm-hmm. and they were still somewhat awake, right? If they hear any sound, there's like, okay, what is that? I'm gonna go find out. So my bedroom was really close to the bathroom door. So as long as I made it into the bathroom, I was good. I was in the clear. But when I came through the front door, they were knocked out. They were asleep, right? They're so deep in their sleep, they're not gonna hear the little noises. So I would still obviously creep up really close. Yeah.
But you're going.
Yeah. And then before I even did that whole stunt, I would leave the key under the mat in the front while we were all awake. So I pre-planned this. I would leave the key under the mat. And that's how I'd get through the front door because I didn't always have the key on me. And that's how I would sneak out. And then one day I finally got caught. Nothing really happened, but it was still like, dang, I got caught.
Okay, so I'm making a mental note of this.
Yeah.
Because tell me how old your kids are.
2 and 3.
2 and 3. Okay, we got a minute.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be I don't even know if Instagram will be a thing by
Probably
the time
not.
that comes around. We'll probably be living
In
in
the
virtual
metaverse.
reality somewhere.
Yeah,
and I'll
in the
be
metaverse.
like, "Hey man, you made a post about one of your kids sneaking out.
Yeah.
One, I want to know which one it is,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna be like, so how did it make you feel? Did you think about that? So that's
I'm always thinking about that. I kid you not. I'm always thinking about how I would react to the things that I did if my kids did it or when they do it, right? First of all, like for me, my mentality is like, okay, if there is something that I personally did, what can I do to avoid them from having to do it or feel like they need to do it? That's kind of I'm always playing the defensive, but using my own personal experiences to then kind of prepare myself for when those times come. You know what I mean? That's how I normally like.
When you look at your kids now, because I know this happens for me, where I'll see things in Xavier that remind me of me. And I'm like, I guess I have, in some aspects, I have such a sense of empathy for him and compassion where I'm just like, oh man, that was me. And I don't want you to have to feel like that. But then as a father, I guess sometimes it hits me of where I'm like, no, we got to beat that up out of you, man. We got to, we're going to figure out a way to get this out because I can't let that grow up in you. So do you ever see that even now with your kids when they're young?
I think they're still too young for me to really fully experience that. I'm just now starting to see in my son like a trait that I don't like, which is he'll get annoyed of his sister pretty quickly and then push her or hit her or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my wife, Jenny, she'll be like, have you ever seen daddy do that to mommy? Have you seen daddy hitting mommy? And he's like, no. So why are you doing it to Emmy? Because it would be a whole different conversation if he's seeing it from dad and hitting, you know what I'm saying? That would be like, I have no right at that point, or she doesn't, like we don't have any right in telling him what he should, because they're going to do what we do.
Correct.
Right? So it's really about, since I never experienced that, I still have to pray against it really because, it could be a generational curse because my biological father used to beat my mom. And I wasn't old enough to really feel fully what that was. I was probably 1 or 2 years old. My brother vividly knows because he's only like 2 years apart. Like we're only 2 years apart. But I don't know, maybe it passed me and then I don't know. But still, it's something that I'm very conscious about that was once a thing. And I just want to make sure. I don't think that's the case. It's just kids being annoyed of their siblings. That's normal.
Yeah. My sister remembers things that happened to her. And I'm like, I don't remember that happening. And then she'd be like, yeah, this and this and that. And I'll be like, oh, you know what? That's funny. That did happen. And did you die? No. Okay. So you're fine. What are we talking about? But that is interesting. When you start to tell your story and then you start to look at like what happens with your kids of like, oh God, is that right? Is that? And
yeah, because it really, he's never seen aggression. Like our kids, man, they truly lead a life of a place that is love. Like they never see us argue. And I truly say that. I know people will probably think like, no, you guys don't. No, like, yeah, we have disagreements and stuff, but there's no yelling of the voices. There's no cursing. There's none of that ever really happens. So they live in this environment of pure just love. And we didn't have all of that. I didn't, at least. I didn't have that growing up per se. not that there was ever like spite or anything like that in my upbringing, but there were stresses, and my mom doing the best as she could as a single mom, raising 2 kids, right, in Miami, and figuring out how to pay rent. And I remember this story, and it's funny because my mom and I will talk about it often, where we were missing literally 5 cents to buy a pizza.
Wow.
And she was just crying in our car. I remember she had a Ford Thunderbird, 1996 Ford Thunderbird or something like that.
With the big bird on the front.
Yeah, with the big. Yeah,
man. Okay.
And she didn't have her registration. It was out, and every time a cop would pull behind us, she would be praying, Lord, he doesn't see it, out loud, that he doesn't see our license plate because we're gonna get a ticket. Blah, blah, blah. Sure enough, we saw it. That's when we started to really get understanding that prayers work, because we would often see a cop behind her, and she would always be praying that they didn't see her license plate, and they'll be behind her, and then boom, go by, and then she would be thanking God, like, thank you, and at the same time, sure, she was, in hindsight, is like, she was doing something illegal. She's driving without a registration.
Yes.
But the reality is that, she was a struggling mom financially speaking, and she had to go to work, and then she also had to pay for babysitters for when we were out of school so that she can go work and give us a lifestyle that, she wanted to give us. And then, we saw that at a young age, and it was instilled in us, the seed was planted, I guess. That's really where, I think it started to kind of grow in us, and always living by faith. And in Dominican Republic, it's very common to have God in the conversation. It's not like a taboo, right? Even though it's predominantly Catholic, always praying and, thanking God and stuff like that. But I didn't really give my life to Christ until that spring break, where I felt so out of place in the world, like in the clubs and places that people would always, have fun in, and all of my friends would have fun and sleeping. They were all sleeping. I was the good kid out of my group of friends. I really was. And it was mostly because I just felt so out of place. I didn't feel like I belonged there. And I always had that in me, but I wanted to also have fun.
Yeah, you wanted friends.
Yeah, right. And then I never had I had this stigma in my head, which most people think is that, if you go to church and all of that, like, there's no fun in that, right? You can't have fun if you're a Christian kid or something like that. And then I remember this specific spring break. There's this sandbars that are in Miami. And you normally like rent out a boat and you go to the sandbar that's in the middle of the ocean, and there's a big party. But like, it gets bad where like you literally see people having sex and doing drugs and all these craziness. And that was my first time going to it, but I knew that kind of stuff was taking place there. I wasn't saved yet. And I was like, you know what, this is going to be like my last hurrah. Because I knew that there was this retreat coming in the church that my mom was attending at the time. And I was like, you know what, before this retreat, I'm going to go enjoy, of what the world has to offer.
How old were you?
I was probably at this point, maybe 17? No? How old? 22? My wife is my fact checker.
Ivan's wife is off camera. So
yeah,
if you see us like asking questions,
if it's dates related or stuff like that,
crazy. I promise you.
22, 24. Oh, she just okay. So we're getting facts.
So
here.
you're out.
I don't know why I thought it was,
because in my mind I'm like, man, this is a crazy conversation. Your last hurrah at 17. My God.
No. 24.
This is another level of thinking.
Yeah, no. So it was 24. I was already like out of school and stuff. Mm-hmm. I went out there and I invested into this Airbnb with a bunch of friends, and I invested into, getting food and for the barbecue and all these things. And I wasn't balling. Like I had a decent job, I guess. Like at that point, I was probably working at either Allstate or one of these retail stores.
Yeah.
But still, I invested a bunch of money, and I had high hopes for this weekend, right? I had really high hopes. And long story short, dude, like everything that could go wrong went wrong.
Oh no.
Like the boat never showed up. That we ended up catching a ride with someone else into the sandbar, and then we were going to meet our friends that were already there. And it turns out once we got there, by the time we actually tried to find them, because we saw different people, we were hanging out, our friends had already left. So we basically got stranded until like dawn. we're like, dude, are we gonna spend the night in freaking, in the middle of the ocean, and it's gonna get like dark and stuff? God knows what happens. Maybe the tide rises or whatever. So all of that happened, and yeah, long story short, nothing good came of it. And it was almost like God saying, this is what you're gonna remember the world for. There's nothing good is gonna come of this, right? And then sure enough, I remember at that time, acquaintance of mine, a friend of mine, was also gonna go because his mom knew my mom, and we both knew about this retreat thing. And I'm like, dude, let's do it together. Like, I don't know anybody there or whatever. And he was also Dominican, so we had a little bit of a connection.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I remember going to the church that morning, and I pull up because there was in a bus. It was one of these retreats that you literally don't have any signal, and it's like a weekend type of thing. It was just youth, like young adults. And we were out there, and then I was the first one inside of the bus that was waiting in front of the church. I was the first one. I'm like, dude, I wonder if this guy's gonna show up. Like, if not, whatever, I'm already here, And sure enough, I see him, and I'm like, yes, you made it. So I felt like a little bit of relief. That was the retreat that I first saw my wife ever. Like, at that time is when she was serving. She's been in church her whole life. Her dad is a pastor to this day. He just turned 80 and he's still pastoring.
Man.
Yeah, still traveling and doing the Lord's work. But she grew up in the church and all that. But that's the time that it was, how many people were there? Maybe like 30 young adults? 80? Oh, there was a lot of people. Dang. And it was me and then my friend. We were like the tall guys, the tall kids in the freaking group. And we were just having fun and really enjoying all that God had to do. And that was a turning point for me. That was the time that I gave my life to Christ. I had an encounter with God. We were baptized in the Spirit, like all these things. And I remember that the theme was that you go out for the weekend and then you go back to the church at the 6 p.m. service, which was the last service of the day.
Okay.
And that's what at our church at the time, it was like they called it like supernatural nights or something like that. And we would all arrive as the bus full of kids that just got from a life-changing, experience, and they'd put us up on stage and all of that. And then one of the fondest moments that a lot of the people at the church have of me is that I ended up like singing in front of the whole crowd. And mind you, this church is kind of a mega church. There was probably like 3,000 people, right?
That's
or so.
Kind of? What?
Yeah.
3,000 people.
Yeah, a big temple, big church. And I ended up like getting, so bold in my faith that I just started singing, even though I can't sing.
You can't sing.
I mean, I want to say, I think anybody can sing. It's just not to the level where you should have a microphone in your hand.
So you can't sing.
So I can't sing.
Okay, all right. Okay.
But, something, maybe the Holy Ghost did something.
I need you to sing something right now if you can.
No,
this is a good secret that you can keep it. We love music and you haven't sang.
No.
Okay.
I'm not there. But, for whatever the reason, I felt to do it because the pastor is like, who can sing? Who can rap? Actually, he was asking who could rap, which my friend could rap. He was like actual rapper. And then he had gone and he killed it. Everybody was going crazy in the church, and he was rapping about like experience or whatever. And I was like, I don't rap, but I'll sing. And then I just grabbed the mic and started singing. It was a cool moment. And then I remember my mom went to that service, but she was serving. She was like, I don't know, usher or serving with, I don't know, with what, but they have church, TVs all around the church at the time. And then she told me, she was like, that's my son, like crying. And that was her prayers really coming to life, and her being able to see her son finally like receive, Christ in a genuine way that it wasn't forced, that, all of those years of prayer finally, so that was a super proud moment for her. And ever since then, man, I remember months into my walk, like I literally, at the time, Instagram was already a thing. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to be bold and say where I'm at, like on social media, so that all of my friends know where I stand.
Yeah. And
it was like, and I was sharing about how, I had an encounter, and I was like, Christian, born again. And I was, posting Bible verses and all these things. And sure enough, great friends and great kids that just also didn't know about all of these things, but they respected it in that they weren't inviting me to like the clubs anymore.
Yeah.
They were trying to, make sure that I stayed right as well, if that's what my desire were. Either that or they said, this dude is a freaking nut. I'm not going to invite him.
The whole time you've been lying to us. The whole time.
Literally. So yeah. And then I remember what really, really hit me. I'm like, man, God really did something. Was when my brother, whom I lived with all my life, we shared a bedroom all our lives leading up to this moment. And he looked at me dead in the face and he asked me, who are you? Like the change was so drastic in my way of being as well, because I wasn't a bad kid, but I wasn't like, I didn't operate in love, right? I feel when you get really filled with the Holy Spirit and you really have an encounter with God, there's not much but to give love to others and really conduct yourself in life and from a place of love.
Yeah.
And especially with my brother, I was always, even though he's my older brother, I was always very upfront and like, get out of my way. And like, I was rude in many ways. I was kind of a jerk. And then ever since then, he's like, dude, like it's like night and day. It's crazy. And at the same time, you had the aspect of, friends and other family members is like, oh, it'll probably dissipate. He'll probably go back to his own, like his ways. As you get the fire of God, not that many people, sustain it or whatever. But man, I'm here I'm a testimony that, I obviously I wouldn't say that I'm perfect by any means. I fall short every single day, but, God, the Lord has kept me in that I've never strayed. I've never gone back to the world. I've never, indulged in any of the things that I used to indulge in. And, it's again, a testament that he is faithful. And as long as you seek him first, everything else shall be added on. So to answer that question originally is like, how do you arrive to, having the beautiful wife and the 2 kids and a thriving business and all these things? I sought after God and everything else came.
Yeah. There's so many things there that we could go with the conversation. I guess, what I would want to know right now is like, prayer is that consistent thing throughout your life that has kept you. So you have that conversion moment and it's continued until this point. Where and how does prayer truly still playing that central role in your life?
Well, my mom is still alive. And my mom is still praying. She's praying. She's a praying woman. She's a warrior. She used to do intercession shifts at our church. She would be interceding. You got that, and then of course I'm married now to a wife that her parents are very much. We have prayer coming our ways from all over the place, and of course our own time as well, our own prayers, and it's super crucial. I think of prayer kind of in a way of like continuously involving God in our day to day.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people make it to seem like this mystical thing and, they'll try to learn Bible verses and recite them and all these things. And I think that that's just religion. Prayer for me is really having a conversation with God and having a conversation with my creator, my provider, and prayer is also being grateful. I usually start my prayers with just gratitude. Yeah. And that someone who, doesn't know how to pray, which I'm sure people that are listening to this doesn't know, how do I pray? That's common. It's not unusual.
Yeah, a lot of Christians don't.
And a lot of Christians don't.
How to pray.
Right.
How to pray.
How to pray. And and it's one of those things that the easiest way for you to kind of think about that or wrap your head around it is like, what are you grateful for? You can be in the most, the bottom of the bottom of your life, and there's still something to be grateful for. There's no situation in life that we can be in that we can't be grateful in any moment, right? And that's my true belief. And I haven't gone through anything so crazy to where it would be extremely hard for me to find the good in. But I know you have, and you're grateful. I'm sure many people have this.
We've had our
Yeah, and then within that, I remember in the podcast that we did for my podcast, you still found a way to be grateful for what God was doing, and you still were able to find that good in it.
Yeah, gratitude is definitely like, it's a mindset that you have to chase after. Like, I don't know if you just are naturally prone, unless you've done it over and over again, you have to fight for it because there's always that moment of like, something can take it away.
Yes.
Like anything. Take this Vegas traffic. It's raining and people don't
Know how to act.
Oh, it's water. What do we do? And I'm like, I'm literally in the car this morning and I hit a good little string of songs where I'm like, man, I'm a gospel guy. I'm like, man, these songs is hitting.
They're hitting right now.
And then I'm like, why are we slowing down in traffic? And I'm like, Chris, did you really just stop praising God? Because you know the people in front of you can't drive. Still got to work on time. Still got did all the things I was supposed to do. But in that moment, like, and then I'm like, oh wait, stop. And then you go right back in. And I feel like that's the same for anything. Like, life happens. It is what it is. And yeah, there might be moments where you can actively change what's happening. But the one thing that I can change is being grateful for the moment, for what I have, for the season of life that I'm in. So it's definitely something that has to be fought for.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's a choice too. Like, people choose to be bitter all their lives. Something people choose to be, happy in despite what they may be going through. Right? I think there was a documentary or something like that. I think it's on Netflix. I want to say it's called Happy or Smile, one of those two. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or something. But it was basically the study of, circumstances and physical assets and stuff like that is not what drives happiness. There's people that are living in Africa and people that are living in remote locations that are happier than people that are living in the United States that have a car, that have a roof over, that have AC and all these things. So it doesn't tie back to possessions and all these things, but it's, kind of having that attitude of, being happy and grateful and all these things. And I think that gratitude in of itself unlocks a lot of the blessings that God has for us.
Do you think being not just totally ingrained from the very beginning in American culture and having that opportunity to grow up in the Dominican Republic where, you're middle class by their standards, but you're still like, okay, there's
still lower class by US standards
than being in America. Like, do you feel like that has a impact on your ability to look at things and be like, oh, no, we can be grateful in all things?
110%. And the moment, especially because I had tasted what it was like to live in the US by coming to Miami a couple times and knowing how it was to, have central AC system and the light not going out every day for a couple hours and not have to experience extreme heat because you live in this concrete house that literally turns into an oven when the beaming sun is hitting it for, 14 hours a day or whatever it is. Having my grandma come to when we're watching TV, literally a 10-inch tube TV, these little small ones that my brother and I and my cousins would fight over what we're gonna watch, and then my grandpa wants to watch baseball too, so we're all trying to wrestle through what are we gonna watch. For sure, seeing poverty firsthand, not that we necessarily experienced it to that level, but it was around us. We could see kids walking without shoes and just with underwear on and, not having to eat and asking for money and all these things. We saw it firsthand. So absolutely, it molded me. Like at the time, like I was saying, I did dread it at the time because I experienced what it was like here in the US. And I would always, my mom, she would call in and I would say, and I'm sure, like, I know how hard it was for her to hear her sons constantly tell her, like, when are we leaving? When are we going back home? And, putting myself in her position as an adult or someone who can reason, like, imagine as a mother, imagine, like me, now that I have two kids, that I'm so far away from my kids that they're constantly telling me, when am I coming to see you? Like, when am I going to go back to you? And this happened for on and off 10 years, right? So it sucked at the time. I'm not even gonna front. Like it was bad. We weren't having the best of time from the sense of like we knew what we were missing out in the US. But even that, we still had an amazing childhood because we had like my grandparents, my aunt she played a really big role also in our upbringing in DR. And they were very strict, right? Because my mom is in the US trying to make a life for us and foundation for us to come over there. And then they felt that responsibility to making sure that me and my brother were good, that something didn't happen. So they were pretty strict. So we lived in a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood where we were at the corner of this cul-de-sac and we could only play from a little tree that's called a pino. Is one of these like pine little trees that they turn into like little balls.
Okay.
And then they said from there on to the inside of the cul-de-sac is where you can play. You can never go anywhere this direction. So all of the kids in the neighborhood knew this. So literally there would be times there would be 20 kids that would come to hang out with us and play with us
in that
area. Cul-de-sac
Wow.
And then we couldn't go out till like 5 p.m. because we had to do our homework and all of that. And then there was kids outside calling my aunt, calling my grandparents, asking if we can come out and play. And it was nice because, you know, even though we were restricted and all these different things, we didn't have so much. Like my aunt, she built us this makeshift basketball court with literally a piece of plywood and a backboard that was, if you see, I wish I had pictures of it. And then she just bought this rim or found this rim and put it on there. And we would just play ball there for hours. And all of the kids from the neighborhood would come and we would just have fun there, ride bikes, scooters, all these things. So it was a very sound upbringing in that we weren't exposed to anything, you know, crazy. You know, I think the only thing that lacked in that sense was just having our mom during that time consistently, right? And then we didn't grow up with my actual father. So my father figure was my grandpa, which he worked a lot. And then whenever he wasn't working, he was just doing his thing. He was very like, love that man. He passed away a few years ago, but and then my uncle would come around, but he was come and go. So there was a couple people that I could, you know, kind of grab from as far as a father figure, but there wasn't really that father figure up until we moved to Miami, and then my stepdad kind of took on that role.
Now, did you know? So tell me about that, because I have a stepfather, a stepfather and a stepmother, and so I feel like I'm super blessed because God saw fit that I would have two sets of parents.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is great. And then sometimes it's not so great. I'm like, oh, if there was only one set of you, this would be fine. But I have two, and it's like, but I love it. But I think about me and my stepfather's relationship, which is great. Like he really came in a pivotal moment for me in my development that you don't appreciate it now, you know, at the time. But looking back, I'm like, oh, okay. Like he played a very distinct role in my life, from understanding, you know, what a man is supposed to do and a father and having those relationships. And my dad does too. He moved back here later. He had moved to Seattle for a while, and then he ended up moving back here later. So that relationship got better once I was older and could ask more complex questions to get answers that I needed. But for that period of time, God had someone that filled that role. So when you get back here to America, how does that play out between you and your stepfather?
So I was really young when because again, we went back and forth a couple times from Miami to DR, and I did a little bit. I think it was maybe kindergarten or something in Miami as well. And he played a pivotal role in our coming to the U.S. finally, right? From a provision standpoint, if it wasn't for him, it would have been very difficult for us to have been able to move. He decided, either my mom gave him the ultimatum. I don't know what happened between them, but she was like, I need to be with my kids. And I don't know, he ended up buying a house, and it was, you know, with bedrooms for us. And, you know, he was a very, you know, crucial piece to our, you know, even what we are today. Because I don't know, maybe we would have been Dominican Republic. I don't know what would have made of it, but he played a very big role from the provision standpoint, right? He himself, had a weird relationship, not a bad one, but a weird relationship with his dad. So he was also navigating how to be a father himself. I have I call him my brother, a brother through him, his son, older brother. And, there wasn't much that we could grasp from that front as far as like, advice and how to be a dad and all these different, he did the best that he can. And I'm super grateful because, again, if it wasn't for him, we probably would have never, been where we're at today,
Right.
let alone ever maybe even made it back to the US, who knows? And then to this day, my parent, then my stepdad and my mom are still married. So, super grateful for the role that he played in my life.
Watching your mom as a single mom, and then you're being raised by your grandparents. Your grandfather is instilling, principles in you while you're in the Dominican Republic. You're seeing, middle class third world country, but still you're in the Dominican Republic, so you're exposed to all of that. You're coming here. You're in Miami.
Yeah.
Of all places that you're coming to be able to experience a childhood. As a man, like, how does that shape you in the direction that you are thinking and going through and wanting to take your, just life in general, just as a man?
I knew what I had a very clear understanding of what life could be if I just coasted and I went with the flow. But I've always been super, I guess, ambitious, or like I always wanted more out of life. I would always be, so for instance, my first business transaction, I guess, is when I was probably maybe 6, 7 years old or something like that. And I don't know, maybe I made some money somehow. Either my mom gave it to me or somehow I had money. And I remember lending money to my grandma and charging her interest, right? And I was always wanting to do things. My aunt, she's an architect, and or was, I don't know if she still is. I want to say was an architect, and I would always go out with her to these houses that she would be building for clients and stuff, and I would be working and always doing things. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, my brother was the complete opposite. He was very, to this day, we're not alike, even though we had the very same upbringing, different circumstances, right? Obviously, not everything exactly the same, but same house, living under the same, like in the same bedroom, same circumstances. Our mom was away. We had each other type of thing. But I've always just been super driven and wanting more. And I knew what the bottom looked like from being in such close proximity to poverty and all of that.
Yeah.
And for whatever the reason, I just knew that something more was to give, and that I wouldn't amount to that, right? That if I was given a chance, if I was given an opportunity to do better for myself, because at that point I wasn't even thinking about family, but if I could, do better for myself, I would make it happen. And I remember my first job, I was begging my mom to let me work at Walgreens, and I was still in high school, I think, and she didn't want to let me because, again, protective, like my children, all these things. Like I wanted to be able to get my haircuts and buy my own clothes, and I had hair back then. I wanted to be able to, buy Taco Bell, and I wanted to not have to count on her to give me money. And then, being how I am, because I always was the teacher's pet in school. I knew how to treat, grown-ups so that they favored me. Yeah. I always, even in DR, I had nicknames for because of how I was. And I convinced my mom to let me get a job at Walgreens. That was my first job, and ever since then, at the time, I remember like, man, this kind of sucks. I don't want to work here. I just didn't find my niche because you're serving, you're working, you're getting paid per hour. But then eventually, I worked my way into working at the pharmacy. So they gave me a raise, right? I'm like,
okay. They let you work at the pharmacy?
Yeah, they let me work at the pharmacy
with no pharmacy? What were you doing in the pharmacy?
Mostly like grabbing the medicine and giving it to the pharmacist.
Oh,
and,
okay. So
yeah, I
you
was
weren't
just
like
mostly assistant.
I'm like, no,
Yeah.
we might be incriminating ourselves on this podcast if you was working in the pharmacy with no scratch that from the tape. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're fine, everybody.
We're good. We're good. No, but then that was my last job that I had that was 9 to 5, not 9 to 5, just based on hourly wage. Everything after that was more like commission based on top of salary.
Okay.
Because I always wanted to be compensated not just for my time, but for my effort as well. So I always sought after, companies that I could work for that I could make commissions. So that led to working in Circuit City, which I don't know if you remember Circuit City.
Yeah. Oh, what?
Yep.
Yes.
I was selling TVs there, crushing it. I was the baller of my class. Like I always had money. I wasn't flashy or anything like that, but I was always good. Oh, we let's go to the movies or whatever. Like, okay. I had the ability to do that. And then sure enough, I got into network marketing too, and another way to make money off of not only my efforts, but now other people's efforts,
yeah.
right? And then that's where that came about. And then I became salesperson at an Allstate agency, worked my way to like sales supervisor, then manager. Then I was managing the whole agency. I helped the agent at the time start a brand new agency. And I was able to grow it to like $3 million book of business.
Wow.
And then the plan was that my wife and I would eventually buy that because they were basically investing in that agency to flip it, to sell it.
Okay.
And we were going to buy it. But the Lord had other plans.
Yeah. Okay. There's
a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there's a lot that's happening there because you
Yeah.
go from, okay, I just want to work because I want to be able to provide for me and have my own little stuff. And then
Yeah.
you start working. Okay, I want to be compensated for my time. And then now we get into like, all right, now we're ownership is the next progression. So this makes sense for what you're doing now. I'm like, oh, okay. I see how we get here.
And I had many other little businesses
Yeah.
that I was always trying to make side money. Even though I had a 9 to 5, I was always like, while I was working at Allstate, I remember having an eco-friendly car wash, which was car wash with vapor. So, and I had a clothing line.
Car wash with vapor. Explain that.
Yeah, so it's this big machine, generator-looking thing, kind of cool looking actually. And then have you seen those? They sell them on Amazon, I'm sure still, to clean mold and stuff. It's like vapor, and it just pressured vapor, kind of like. So think about a steamer that you steam your clothes with.
Yeah.
So that thing, but with pressure as well. So a lot of it coming out. So you could wash the cars with that. So we had this machine. I bought a Transit Connect, a Ford Transit Connect, which was one of these little vans that we stuck it in there. I hired 2 guys that would help me. I wasn't even out there actually doing the washing because I had to be working.
So you're okay.
I'm delegating it.
Yeah.
And then I had a clothing line in Dolphin Mall, which is one of the bigger malls in Miami. And I partnered with this guy that had capital that he invested into. Like I did graphic design. I graduated. Well, I didn't graduate, but I had classes in graphic design. And looking back, like I needed licensing for everything that I was designing. I remember at the time the Jersey Shore was a thing, so I had a shirt that I designed for each one of the characters of the Jersey Shore. Do you remember the Jersey Shore?
I never.
The
that wasn't my show, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was out and I made a bunch of these shirts and we were selling them at Dolphin Mall, and we had one of these kiosks. At the time, they were $4,000 a month in rent, and that was a lot. Now it's probably like 15, 20 grand just to be in one of these little kiosks. But I had that business going at one point too. So it was a lot going on at the same time.
Now that you're saying all this stuff, now we have to put a disclaimer on the front of this episode. If you have ever bought anything from Ivan that was, listen, God has redeemed him.
Yes.
He's doing something else. So don't reach out to him if you were in Miami in the early 2000s and you bought a shirt.
Yep.
With Snooki on it. Just call it a wash. God will repay you. So we got to put disclaimers on, man. What are you doing? What are you That's okay, so that's cool because everyone's like growth into this entrepreneur kind of thing. Like it's cool to be an entrepreneur now. So everybody wants to go, I got an LLC. Let me go do it. But to really watch someone's story where they're like, no, I really just wanted to make my own. And I was working, but I wanted to make more money. So I started doing all these different things. It's cool to watch that progression. Now, during this time, where you're growing as an entrepreneur, you're establishing yourself as a salesperson and all these different things. Where's God at in helping direct some of these paths? Are these just random ideas where you're like, oh, we're just gonna go make money, or do you feel like, okay, God, you're giving me something that other
Yeah.
people don't have?
In those business decisions, when I would start these businesses, for the most part, I didn't really count on God. It was just me I would always get ideas and I always had the urge to do it. That's whatever the capacity. I knew that the level of failure was there. Like, this could not work. Like, it's possible, but I didn't care. I always lived by this model, to this day I do, that I'd rather live with a failure than a regret. And then at the time, it seemed reckless, because if I had friends and family members that would be like, I need to do that again. You're failing and you're not doing good. It's not working out. You keep doing different things and it's just not working out.
Right.
And for me, I was just like, dirt off my shoulder. It's fine. I can't live with not doing it. Right. I have to get it out of my system. I have to do it.
And is this friends, or is this friends and family? Like, this is everybody?
Kind of a mixture of both. And it's not like annoying, but they would throw little,
the jabs,
little jabs
that come.
Yeah,
you got another.
And I'm like,
idea,
hey, okay, exactly.
Okay,
and then to this day, now it's a little bit different, because now I don't entertain the idea until I count on God and is like, hey, do I go forward with this? And then now I have my wife to bounce things off of where I didn't before.
Oh yeah, that's
because she's my prophet. She's my personal prophet. She's on payroll for prophetic. But no, I would say, like, I have this idea. So this morning we were talking about, I was literally on the way here asking about this new idea and telling her about it. And she's like, I think that's great. And then for me, she has her own prayer time and I trust with her feeling what she feels. And then if I feel led to do something, I usually bounce it off of her. And as long as I get the okay from her, then I feel peace as well. Right. Even though I don't always just count on, those things. But at the same time, I'm always getting downloads. I call them downloads. I tell babe, I just got another download. She's like, oh boy, what is it now?
Now, so we haven't even gotten into that, but I do want to stay in this vein. I feel like in Christian culture, we struggle with just what's the role of the man, what's the role of the woman, and we're supposed to lead our wives and all these different things, right? Like, we don't need to go down that rabbit trail, but
right.
How are you balancing? God's giving you downloads and you're very much walking in that authority, but your wife is very much present and she's there and she's a part of the conversation. So how are you balancing that as an entrepreneur, but being married and working as a couple?
To me, honestly, I find it as a competitive advantage, the fact that I have someone like her. And, me listening to what she has to say also comes with the track record of whenever she's told me things that maybe I shouldn't do, that maybe went the route that I didn't want, right? And then vice versa. She trusts me because I have a track record of, performing in whatever way, right? And it's funny because I had the podcast with Ryan and he pointed this illustration. I wanted for everybody to hear it here as well. That, submission is a thing that it has a bad connotation in this day and age.
Culture.
In today's culture, it's like submission, especially if it's like a woman submitting to his husband, is like, oh no, you don't want any of that.
Yeah.
And then he said something that it kind of like, dude, that's perfect sense. So I'm going to steal it. And he was trying to give credit to whoever he heard it from, and he doesn't know. So we're kind of just
if you hear it,
and
put
you
it
said
in the comments. But it's Ivan's now,
exactly,
and Ryan's,
and whoever else.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's making its way through the world.
As long as you pay it forward, right?
Yeah, it's the Bible, so it's fine.
Right, exactly. So how he said it was that a woman is the if you break down the word, sub is to be under, right? And then mission, sub, and then mission is the mission. So a woman is standing under standing under a mission. In order for a woman to be submissive, you need to be a man who has a mission.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have a mission, there's no wonder that women don't want to submit to their husbands or to the men of these, because they don't have a mission. They're just going with the flow. They're stuck freaking playing video games and doing whatever it is that they do.
Yeah.
If you don't have a mission, you can't expect your wife to be submissive to you. So I've always, ever since we got married, I've always had her super involved in, major decisions. For for me, in my role, she understands because we're equally yoked and we understand that Jesus is at the center of our relationship, it's easier to navigate those types of conversations. Whereas if I'm Christian and she's not, then we have beliefs that are not very aligned, right? Or vice versa. Then there's going to be some clashing, right?
For sure, yeah.
And we are blessed enough to have the same beliefs. We believe in the same Christ, and we believe that he's in the center of our relationship. And we believe that the Bible is the book that's going to guide us through life, and we believe what's in it, and we believe that it's the full truth, not partial truth.
Yeah.
So now when you have this conversation, it's almost like a cheat code, because what does God say about this? Right? We don't have to go figure it out and see what feels best for us and our emotional selves, right?
Right.
Like, I don't have to see how she feels about certain things. No, it's like, what does the word say? You know? Thou cannot deny of each other. You know what I'm saying, girl? Like, I mean,
tonight,
you know what I'm saying?
this afternoon, kids are asleep. What are we doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So obviously there's little perks that God hooked us up with, but at the same time, you know, we should treat our wives as Jesus treat. What's the verse I'm here? Treat the church.
We should die for our wives. We should die for our family. I'm paraphrasing here, so don't be scripture Nazis.
I'm not a theologian over here. I'm trying to figure it out. But
you dare.
But the concept is that I should treat her how Christ treats the church.
Right, and Christ died for the church.
And Christ died for the church.
So if I'm not dying for my wife, it's kind of hard for my wife to submit to me.
Right. Exactly.
So two things. One, if you haven't watched this, you need to go watch it. I watch it like once a year, and I share this with all of the men that I come across.
Miles Monroe?
Why Men Need Visions and Dreams? That guy.
Is it?
Yes, Miles Monroe. Why Men Need Visions and Dreams. If there was one time when someone died and I was like, now God, now you know, I wanted to meet this man.
Yeah.
Because that sermon...
I haven't seen that one.
You need to watch. I watch that sermon once a year.
Oh, really?
Once a year.
Oh, please send it to me.
And it changed my life, because he starts off with, Adam in the garden, and how work is not this. It's not work is not a product of the fall of man, but work is what Adam was originally given, and how the woman is supposed to help him. With his work. And he starts off in there, and he's like, you want to go take care of this woman, and you have no work for her to do. So how dare you take this woman away from her father to come follow you, and you have nothing for her to work with.
Right.
Now you're upset when she goes and gets her own work. And then it's like, well, she wouldn't have to go get that.
If you did your part.
If you did your part. And even if she went to go get her own work, if it falls within the vision of the house, it's not competing with you. It's honoring you. It's bringing more in to help the vision go forward. So that's like definitely, I'll send that to you.
100%.
He is, that sermon is amazing.
The one I was referring to from Miles Monroe that I watched multiple times, even I watched it one time before asking my wife to marry me, was his I guess it was a retreat, but it was a series on singleness.
Ooh, I haven't heard that one.
Oh, fire, bro. Well, now there's the newer version of that, which Mike Todd did really good in sharing in a more modern, take on it. But I'm pretty sure Mike Todd got some
of that
from Dr. Miles Monroe.
Nothing's new under
because
the sun,
he's OG.
Man. Nothing's new. I love
that. Changed my life, like you said. It changed my life, and it really made it to where singleness is not a bad thing.
No, it's a blessing.
Singleness is a blessing, and it allows us to prepare ourselves for us men, our helpmate, and be able to be who God has called us to be for His daughters.
Yeah, Jasmine being with me, and not being intimidated by the vision that I have, and since we met, where I'm like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and this is where I'm going, being my greatest support and cheerleader. Y'all already know what I can't call her, just because I just have to.
She's your BFF, bro.
Listen.
That's not front. BFF for life.
It's a whole nother thing. It's a whole other thing. You catch the other podcast, you'll be able to. You can catch up on where we're going with some of this. But when you say it's a cheat code, it definitely is, because there's moments where I know, even if I'm not hearing from God, and she's like, I don't know if this is it. She'll
Call it out.
She'll call it out, but I know she's praying for God to get through to me. Or then if all else fails, she'll just go tell somebody who I have accountability with, and she'll be like, hey, Chris tripping, you probably should go talk to him about whatever this is that he's about to do. And it helps. Jasmine has kept me from making some of the dumbest decisions in my life. Not even like just some of the most outlandish things that I would have thought to do that I can't do because I'm married.
Yeah.
I'm accountable to someone else. And I don't want to have to come back and tell her, oh, I did this. And so it has definitely helped me not do a lot of things. And that in many different ways has shown up in my life. And thank you for speaking to that, because a lot of men and women are struggling in that aspect of like, well, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business leader, I'm supposed to do all these things, and my wife needs to support me. And it's like, does she or should she? Like, how you're doing it right now? I don't know if that's true.
Right. No, 100%. I think that, marriage should be, considered to be a partnership. A lot of the times you'll see marriages that are competing with one, like the husband and wife are competing for status or competing for, and forgetting that it's literally a union.
Yeah.
There's literally a union that you're both striving towards a common goal, right? My wife and I sit down at the top of every year and we've, sit down and, okay, what's our goal for this year? What do we want to accomplish? What are we working towards? Because we both have to be in alignment to where we're trying to go, So yeah, man, having a wife, having the right wife, is definitely a blessing. It's not something that, I don't know how people go through life without having a helpmate or someone there that can come together with you in agreement.
I couldn't host this podcast if Jasmine wasn't there for me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be living a life where I'd be able to do so if I'm like, no, that's probably best if she's around. I probably shouldn't be getting into some of the trouble that the world has. But yeah, I don't know either how people, I get so for those of you that are listening, like if you truly are searching for that one, like Ivan said, there's a blessing in singleness, and it's okay to be single and still be letting God know the desire of your heart. And you might be a woman, man, it doesn't matter on either side, but just know, like, as a man, you want to have a work that a woman wants to be a part of. But then also as a woman, you want a man who has a work that you want to be a part of. So it's not like you have to still be what is it, single and secure? I think that might be another book. But you want to be single and secure so that when the person who has the work that you identify with presents itself, you can take part in that opportunity.
100%. I was very, very comfortable being single. Like, I didn't even think I was going to get married that young. And by today's standards, not that young. Like, I was like 25 years old when I got married.
My wife was, according to the world, though, that's still
super
like,
young.
You're just coming into the prime of your youth. What are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
I was fine being single. I'm the type of person that you can catch me eating dinner by myself in a restaurant. You can find me having, watching a movie by myself. Like, I don't have that yearning. I don't feel lonely and all these different things. But I feel that because I was like that, God said, you're ready. You need.
Yeah.
Because it's not what I want. It's not like I wanted a wife. Like, I'm sure, like, in the distance, far out, like, yeah, I want to have a family, of course. But it wasn't in that time period. It was just what God knew what was right for me in that moment. And sure enough, how we met was just because of that, retreat. And then nothing came of it. We were just in the same circles. They brought me closer. Because I was a new believer, right? You know how they try to bring you closer, get you involved in the community.
You need to be around us so we can help you stay safe.
Yes, so you don't fall back,
fall out of this.
Yeah. I don't want you backsliding out here. So yeah, I was very much, I was sold out for Jesus. So I was like showing up to every little, house party that we had and stuff like that. with them. And then she was very much involved in that whole thing. And then how our relationship came about was that we were in a group that was probably 15 of us, 12 of us. And it was so many of us that we never really caught attention to each other. And that's from that side of the things. And I had a dream randomly. And I never dream. To this day, I barely ever dream. And I need to pray for because I need some dreams. But I had this random dream, and it was me sitting on a bench. It's like a 3-person bench, and it was a slot in the middle. And then Jenny was sitting on the farther side of the bench. And just all of a sudden, she just scoots next to me. Scoots next to me. And that she wasn't even looking at me or anything like that. Scoots next to me, and boom, I wake up. Now, mind you, in this time, I was somewhat, still newly saved. I've been praying, fasting. I was on fire, that first fire, that first love. So I'm like, God, you're telling me something here because I know I don't dream. This is random. Like, I don't even see her in this way. Like, it's not, lust or anything like that.
Right.
I don't even see her. But, from that moment on, I was praying about it. I was like, God, what are you trying to tell me? And it's kind of like one of those things is like, when you get a car or you get something and all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
So now I started to notice her because of this dream. I'm like, God, what are you trying to tell me? So now I started to see her and look at her and I'm like, oh, I mean, she's actually cute. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then one thing led to another. And then we ended up, we were all going to go on this cruise to the Bahamas or something like that, the group of us. And then at this point, maybe it was like a couple weeks till then. And then I remember telling her, I'm going to keep my eye on you during this cruise. That was like my line to fill it out.
All right.
She's like, oh, okay. And that was it. And we just started texting leading up to it a little bit more and all these things. And then sure enough, that's when things started. Like I started to catch feelings for her and like notice her more and all these things. And our relationship was interesting because our whole thing was, and I don't know where I got it from the Holy Spirit, but I remember telling her like, okay, we're not going to tell any of our friends that we're like talking, getting to know each other because we don't want any outside voices to be a hindrance to what God is trying to do here.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was very mature of me at the time, but I didn't know where that came from. Again, one of those downloads.
Yeah.
Because nobody had ever done that I knew of. Like it's not like, oh, so-and-so did this, so I'm going to do this when I get into a relationship. So nobody knew other than our mentors at the time. We had people that we were accountable to and our parents, right? Just to obviously, whenever we were going out or whatever, we were on point there. But for months, not even her best friend knew that we were getting to know each other and things. And that was a blessing because it allowed for us to really hear God and really pray and see if it was the will of God for us to be together.
Oh, you preaching now. You preaching. Well, you preaching.
Because at the end of the day, reality is that if we weren't jealous with that season of our lives, Satan could have creeped in there really quick and destroyed something that would have now been the beautiful thing that it is. But, he could have used people to say certain things about her that are going to make me not want to be a part of it. And at the same time, on the opposite side of the spectrum, they could have told her things that, oh, this guy is just, he just is a new believer. He might slide back. Like, you don't know, especially from the point that she's a PK.
Keep talking.
Right? She's a PK. And the expectations was that she was going to marry another PK, a pastor's kid or something like that. Not this new Dominican, new believer.
So he light skinned. So you want to go talk to him, huh? Oh, okay.
Exactly. Right. So, all of these different things could have happened that would have deterred us from really seeking after God and what he wanted in our relationship. And I remember to this day, not to discredit, and I'm not going to say their name, but I remember asking a pastor further on into our relationship. This was before me asking her to marry me. If, he was an authority still in my life. So I ran it by him. And he basically told me, no, like you don't want to marry her. You don't want to marry her. And he might have his own reasons. He's known her for way longer than I did. Mm-hmm. And then luckily I have a relationship with God too. So I was kind of doing it out of obedience and following the church I guess, protocol of running it by your authorities type of thing. And I wanted the blessing from him. I got it from everyone else, like my actual pastor and all these different things. And from whatever reason, from him, I didn't get it. I'm like, okay, I got enough yeses. I'm still going to move forward with this regardless. I would just love, the blessing.
Yeah.
And that's just a testament, not to, bash pastors. Pastors have been an instrumental piece of my life in many different ways, but they're also humans.
Yeah.
And that's why we should always have a relationship with God, because we all know and will be able to identify what God has for our lives as well. That doesn't mean that they're not going to speak into us either way and all these different things, but it's crucial for us to still have that second data point, or it should be the first, of like you having a relationship with God.
Your life of prayer makes this possible.
Yeah.
Because for you to say, one, God showed you something, he gave you a vision, and you didn't go to her, which is where most guys mess up. Jenny, I saw in a dream.
Oh my goodness.
You are my wife. You scooted closer to me. So she'd have been like, oh, he crazy. He's the new Christian. He's the crazy guy, right? Like, if you say, don't stop saying stuff like that. If you're a Christian guy, be normal. Like, let me help you. They don't like you because you're weird. Stop being weird. Like, let somebody help you. Don't tell no woman that you prayed and God showed you hurt.
Oh my goodness.
We don't know. Stop saying that. Like, let me help you find freedom now. Don't say that. Just be like, hey, how are you? How you doing? Yeah. But you did something, though. You prayed. So this is this scripture that comes to Matthew 6. Let's start at verse 5. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues, at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, pray to the Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees you in secret will reward you. God gives you a vision. You see her, you pray. You see her more, you keep praying. You kept what you thought was potentially going to be a budding relationship between the two of you. You sought accountability, and then you dated in secret, not to hide from people, but to cover that thing in prayer, to make sure, like, okay, before we go
to
public,
protect it.
Yes, before we go public, because what if that's not what the dream was? And then you go and you say all of this. Now you got to unwind it. And everybody's like, oh, she was in a relationship, and now you got to leave the church and all this crazy stuff. It's like, no, we did it in the secret place is a place for prayer, but it's also a place for God to be able to see and help you understand, is this relationship right? Is this business right?
Yep.
Like, everything that you have said through this entire thing goes back to the focus of, my mom prayed.
Yep.
And I prayed.
Yep.
And God has sustained me in prayer. And when I don't know what's going on, he gives me a download. I tell my wife, she goes and she prays. Your relationship started off in the secret place.
Yep.
And then when people find out, it's like, so when someone gives a word that's not, they're just giving their best advice, but it's not the correct thing. I know that it's not, because this was birthed in prayer. Yep. So if that is right, it'll line up with what I was told in my secret place.
Yep.
And then God will reward me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the whole, like, if you wanted a secret to relationships, it's pray. Yep. And even when you get the answer that you think might be it, don't take it out of the secret place.
Yep.
When it's ready to be exposed, God will expose it.
Yep.
And then here you all are now.
And that's been it worked very well. The fact that we did it in secret in that sense, that every major decision that led up to that, in our lives, that is major, that we wanted to be jealous about how we kept it from the general public, to make sure that we were listening to not only ourselves, but also we're not getting outside opinions and stuff like that. And we're seeking after God's answer, has always been this case. When we moved from Miami to, when we made the decision to move from Miami to Charlotte, where we live now, where we have no friends, no family, we're starting, it made no sense technically, right? Because there's nobody out there. We did the exact same thing. We kept it within ourselves. Nobody knew at this point. We mentioned it to our leaders at that time, like our mentors, and like, we don't know if this, I mentioned it to them. I don't know if this is the case, but I just feel like I'm not going to be in Miami. I'm not going to like raise a family and all that here. We were already married at this time. And I remember telling them just like, this is a possibility, just being accountable with my thoughts and where God was leading me in my own prayer. And I even mentioned it to them before I brought it up to Jenny, because that was something that was in my heart that I just needed to make sure that I was just voicing. And then sure enough, before we made the decision to tell everybody, we had already been praying for a year before we actually moved.
Yeah.
And then same exact thing. I remember her telling her best friend that we were moving, that we are currently having a house being built in Charlotte.
Yeah.
It was after the decision was made.
Yeah.
At that point, it doesn't matter what people will say.
No, because it's already been reaffirmed.
God has certified it.
We're done. We're good.
We're done. It's a wrap. Everything else can come. It's all done. This is what's going to happen.
Man, that secret place
Yeah.
preaches. I might have to preach that. I will definitely reference you, so don't worry.
Yeah.
But that secret place is such. Oh, and I love that the secret place is a place of prayer for everything, because people can become, and I've made that mistake about being too vocal to people about calling or what God's going to do or the places he's going to go. And it opens the door for people to come in and say what they feel.
Instill doubt in you.
Right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right.
And it's just like, when I stop talking about things and I don't bring things up anymore,
Yeah.
now it's just like, because I've been accused of that before, of like, well, you're not saying anything. Well, nah, 'cause there's a secret place that you're not invited to that things are working out in.
Yeah.
And then when I start saying it,
Yeah.
now you know, or you just see, like, now it's just like people are like, oh, they see the podcast or they see the Wealthy King. They're like, what are you?
Yeah.
It's like the guy peeping over the,
Yeah.
what are you working on over there? It's like, nah, there was a secret place over here that
Yeah.
you were not privy to. But now that you see what we're building,
Yeah.
I can tell you about it because I'm solid. And I wish I had learned that principle that you've been living your whole life. I wish I had known and really employed that in my own life at a younger age, because I think I could have saved myself a lot of grief.
Well, hopefully now a lot of people that are listening to it can do that. And again, I don't know. I mean, I know it's God, but I'm always curious. I'm like, God, why did you put that in me? And I love the fact that my wife, she was so on board with that. You know, again, it's me presenting an idea to her, and she had to make a decision whether or not she was going to roll with that. Not telling your best friend, that's a huge thing for girls. Like not telling the people that are close.
Ooh.
Yeah, that BFF, like that's a thing that is not easy. And she was like, okay, no, yeah, I agree. I think we should do that. And then I always say this, like my wife, she's like my ride or die, and she's like legit. I always play around. And this is a scenario that I usually use. Like we're here doing a podcast and I tell her, hey babe, we should go kayaking. We're in Vegas. We're going to find a river somewhere. We're going to go kayaking. And she'll be like, but wait, the kids are at home, but I mean, the grandparents are there. Okay, let's do it. I mean, if you think that that's what we should do, let's go and do it, you know? And I love that about her because it just makes life easier to navigate. And I'm not saying that just because she's right here, because I say this behind closed doors and whenever she's not around or whatever, but it just makes it easier for me to know that she's backing up my decisions, and because she trusts that I'm listening to what God is saying.
Yeah.
And that's the type of submission that we talk about, right? It's easier for her to submit under what God is guiding me to do because I'm being guided by God. It's harder for a woman to submit to a man that is being led by his emotions, his wants, desires, ambitions.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the disconnect is in this culture that we're in, because now women are thriving more than men. And it's no wonder, right? Men are not stepping up to the plate.
Yeah.
And if a man is not stepping up to the plate, then a woman has to step up to the plate. And they're all competing us in the marketplace and all these things. And all these equality things come up, which, whatever. But it is in God's design for there to be a man and a woman that come together in a covenant, in holy matrimony.
Yep.
And that they build something of significance, not only for their families, but for generations to come.
Because at that point, you're not competing against each other.
Right.
You're competing, again, for the mission.
Exactly.
And wherever we play a part, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Because it goes for the mission. Does she make more money than you? Great. It's
Amen.
funding the mission.
Yes.
What does that have to do
Yes.
with anything.
Bro, I've seen it so many times where, the women start to shine or make more money all of a sudden than their husbands, and the husband feels a certain way, or there's that competition aspect of. The other day I remember because my wife's Instagram reels and posts have been going viral like left and right, and I've been doing this social media thing for a year and a half, and I can't figure it out.
They're great if you haven't watched them.
They're great.
They're amazing.
They're great, and she's like blowing up and all these things, and then I'm like, okay, like I can get used to like having a sugar mama, like. I can get used to bringing in some cash, so I
tell Jasmine all the time, if you want to make me a stay-at-home dad, I'm down. That is it. She doesn't even acknowledge me.
No, I wouldn't.
She just walks away. I'm like, I guess that's not going to happen. All right, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah, no. So I mean, I love the fact that we're in a place also in our relationships where it isn't a competition. It really is like, this is our goals. This is what we're trying to achieve. Wherever it comes from, wherever God decides to bring it through, we embrace it and we go through it, And, I wish that there was more couples that approached it that way, because a lot of the times, relationships fails because there is that disconnect. There is that, selfishness really is what it boils down to. Yeah. Each one wanting their own thing versus coming together and achieving something greater.
Yeah, there's no cohesiveness around even who they are as people. It's like, did you really sit down and learn who each other were? And yes, people evolve and you change, but did you make a commitment to the person that you loved? Did you make a commitment that we'll grow and we'll evolve together? Because ultimately, if there is a grander vision for what this marriage is supposed to accomplish, we have to grow.
Yeah.
We have to change. We have to level up, and we still want to stay committed to each other during that. And it's not an overshadowing, because if Jasmine starts to kill it and whatever it is that she wants to do, great.
Yeah.
And if that's her strength, then God, let's ride her strength. I remember when we first started just really trying to become like entrepreneurs and grow businesses, and she's got ideas for things that she wants to do. And I want to say we had a conversation about that. And I'm like, listen, if your business takes off and it's doing better than mine, we're going to pour resources into your business. I'll swallow my pride, as it doesn't take away from my position as a husband.
Yeah.
But I'll swallow my pride as a man, having something that I want to grow as well.
Right.
And be like, yeah, we're going to pour into this until we get to a point to where then I can pour into mine. Like, whichever one of these things strikes gold.
Right.
As long as one of them strikes, let's go. Like, what are we talking about? It's all these resources are coming into the house, and I want to be supportive. And just because God may bless one in a different way, in a faster way, whatever the case may be, doesn't mean that there's less blessing for me. That's just the thing that he decided to put his hand on at that time, and it worked.
Yeah. No, I think that that's great. And I think that the best advice I would give to someone who is, especially if you're single, is to just make sure that you are the best version of you that God can give to your person.
Yeah.
Right? And just continue to work on yourself. I think that there is a blessing in that singleness. I love when I see people embrace. I have friends to this day that are similar age in me that are still single, and I'm still telling them, like, dude, you're doing great. Keep going. Encouraging them. It's not like you're not going to stay single all your life. Yeah. Your wife will come. Your husband will come. My wife tells, and then, just make sure that you are ready for God's best. Because if you are not God's best, why would He give you His best?
Yeah.
And I think that marriage is one of those things also that you're never really ready for. No, just like kids, you're never really ready for kids.
Had we known what was on the other side of this, we might have been like, you know what? You want to wait?
Yeah, exactly. No, but at the end of the day, we're never technically ready. However, the potential is there.
Yeah.
God, He's just perfect in his ways, and as long as we allow Him to orchestrate it, and let God be God in our lives and our decisions that we make, and the people that we surround ourselves with, and all these things. There's a reason why I have Matthew 6:33 on my ring in the inside. Is my favorite Bible verse, and I always say it. And is to seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and everything else shall be added onto you. And in the time where I was just seeking after God is where God downloaded or gave me the dream of my wife. And when I was seeking after God is when God, gave me my businesses. And, seeking after him and everything else truly came. And that doesn't mean to be waiting for God to put it on your lap. You still have to do the work.
Right.
However, if you're seeking him and making him priority, everything else is added on.
It's the Adam principle. God looks at Adam doing what he assigned Adam to do and said, oh, it's not good for you to be alone.
Yeah.
Adam wasn't looking for Eve. He didn't have any knowledge of Eve.
Dude, that's crazy.
I don't even know if he's like, God looked at it.
Yeah.
Like we get no indication that Adam thinks any other, because he's in a state of perfection.
He wasn't lonely that we know of. Like he didn't show any signs of loneliness.
There is such a big difference in being alone and being lonely.
Mm-hmm. Loneliness is a state of mind.
Yeah. He's like, Adam is just doing his job.
He's doing work.
And God is like, and we don't know how long Adam was doing that.
Right.
We don't know what happened. He's down there doing the thing and he's, this is
giving names to the plants and the
animals. Yeah, he's doing it. He walking through the garden. He's like, oh, don't touch that tree. All right, we can do this over here. And then God is like, yep. You need somebody. Hey, Adam, go to sleep. And he wakes up and he's like, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. What?
Yeah. What have we?
What is this?
Yeah.
This for me? God. This is.
Yeah.
I kind of envision that of like Adam working, and then God walks in the cool of the day.
Yeah.
And he's walking with Eve.
Yeah.
And Adam is like,
oh, yeah.
Hey, who your friend is over here?
Yeah.
How you doing? She don't look like the rest of these animals. She looks like me. So this, drop my phone. Is this for me?
Yeah.
And God gives you the blessing in the midst of doing the work.
Yeah.
That he gave you. And I feel like people are looking for Eve and they're not looking for the work.
Mm-hmm.
That Eve can come along. It's like, it's so right there.
Yep.
And we look for all the other stuff. And there's, of course, there's a whole like, man, I'm just grinding. And I get that part.
Yeah.
But being with God, walking with God, hearing God.
Yeah.
And doing the thing that he has gifted you to do.
Yeah.
And then God looks at your life and says, ooh, let me bring this here, just like it happened for you. And then all of a sudden,
I literally can't identify so hard with Adam right now because that's literally what was happening. I was doing the work. I wasn't looking for my Eve.
Then you went to sleep.
And then I went to sleep. And then
you literally went
I
to
literally
sleep,
went to sleep.
Like,
exactly, dude.
Have you?
Oh my goodness. I never thought about it like this way.
Jenny?
That's crazy.
Like, who?
Who's this?
Why she closer to me? Ma'am, there's a big seat. You can definitely slide back over there. I'm a little claustrophobic now. Can you scoot back over? That is great.
That's crazy.
That is amazing.
That's so good.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did we intend for this to be like a couples marriage thing? See, you started this.
I did, man.
You started this with the last podcast. And so everybody check out. Ivan and his wife Jenny have a podcast. You need to go watch that podcast to get an understanding of what
and we had them on
about. And we were on, and I don't know if this is like a new ministry for y'all or if y'all just been doing this, but
it's crazy. I'm gonna tell you a story. When we first got married, we were probably maybe a year into our marriage or so. We, for whatever the reason, it was back then when YouTubing was like a thing, and we decided that we wanted to start a YouTube channel. And it was called I don't even know if I want to say the name.
Say it. We're here now.
It was Genevan Chronicles. Ivan Chronicles.
Genevan, that's unique.
Yeah, unique.
Is it still
not catchy? You can't who would Google that? It's not SEO friendly, but whatever. We made it work.
Are the videos still up?
Yeah, they're still up. You can find it somewhere. And it was just two kids really just figuring out this marriage thing and sharing it with the world.
Wow.
Or trying to help others, guide them through the process of going from singleness to getting married. We could only help people through the seasons that we've been through.
Correct.
So we acknowledge that. It's not like we were trying to say things that we weren't even doing yet. But we spoke about the process that I shared with you of keeping things close knit before letting everybody else know, all these different things. And it's crazy to see it full circle now where, again, in his timing, he's allowed us to have I guess, another platform for us to, because throughout, this was many years ago. This was maybe, 6 years ago that we started that YouTube channel or something.
Wow.
And we haven't really touched it since and all of that. And then to go through all the things that we've gone through and, marriage and having kids and having experiences of our own and seeing other couples and helping them as well through their processes and all of that. I think that, God's timing is impeccable in that we now have more substance to give in that sense. And, we're just here, for the ride, really just being obedient to what we feel, called to do. And, I think that what Jenny and I have is unique in that it's not very common these days in the world that we live in. And the negative voices revolving around what marriage is are very loud.
Yeah.
And I feel the conviction to be as loud when it pertains to what God can do in a marriage and what it should be and what it should look like, and not put up this front and, because the things that we do, for Instagram and, the things that we do in to post and all of that, sure, there's acting involved, but we don't do anything that doesn't actually like somehow relate to us.
Right.
We're not trying to put up this front and act like this perfect couple. Because number one, we're not perfect, but we're not trying to orchestrate this thing to be something that is not. We do truly live a God-fearing life, and our marriage, it does revolve around, Christ and all these things. So I find joy in bringing this perspective of what marriage should be like, especially in a world where the opposite is so loud.
Yeah.
And, discrediting what the nucleus of the family should look like and what the role of a husband and a wife should look like and what the role of kids should be like, all these different things as, society tries to distort it at its best, or the devil tries to distort what that looks like.
Yeah.
I feel it's our responsibility to, just be just as vocal when it comes to that.
I will not allow broken people to tell me what something whole should look like.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's like, no, because when we boil, whether it's relationships or family or kids, that culture in the world is trying to tell us, like when you boil it down, it's like, man, y'all are so broken that you feel like you have to tear this down.
Yeah.
Like, because I understand when life has broken you so much that you get to a point to where you just want to break down what broke you because you don't have anything else. You don't want anyone else to experience what you experience. So what's the next best thing?
Yeah.
Let's tear it down.
Yeah.
But a broken person can't put something back together. It has to come from someone who's whole, who's together. Not perfect, but in our case, someone who's broken, who's been mended by God, who's also holding us together. And when we fall apart, he's able to put us back together, and we're able to give the picture of him. It's not even of us. It's not even of our marriage. It's how can God take two people who are crazy and broken in their own sense, build them up, bring them together, keep them together, and help them to shine his light into the world. Like that is, I'm like, that's it. That's the thing.
100%.
And so for you and Jenny to be doing that it's amazing, because people need to hear it. And I know we've laughed and we've joked around, but there's a lot of truth in all of that, where it's like, okay, like we're not perfect, and this has been a podcast, but it's like, man, this is your life. You've lived this for years, and so you've seen over and over again where God has been faithful, in the secret place, through prayer, through talking, and the ups and downs of communication, and the crazy TikTok stories,
and I'll say this as a matter of fact, because I don't want it to be all fluff and all things. Like, I would love to share the point where Jenny and I were going to break up before we got married. There was that season where, we were already boyfriend and girlfriend publicly. Everybody knew, right? But we were going through a patch of, time where there was just miscommunication and false expectations on both of our ends. Jenny, just to give you, I guess, the backstory, or Jenny is a single child that has a loving father, right? That showed her, attention, love, all of these things. And I came from a background where I'm in Dominican Republic. My mom is far away. I didn't really have that affection part of me in there. But she had this perception of what a relationship should be like that was not realistic. And then I was on the other side of the spectrum where I was like dry in essence, right? So she wanted flowers and candy every day to feel appreciated and feel that there was something always there. And I was on the opposite side where I was like, you should know I love you. I'm dry.
I'm here, right?
I'm here, right?
All
Like I'm not gone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can.
So there was this time, and one thing that I'll mention that a lot of people don't do, I feel, is that when we got together, when we officially, before we got together actually, and we became boyfriend and girlfriend, I always told her that if we ever were to break up, that was it, that we weren't going to do the whole back and forth thing, like breaking up and getting back together and breaking up and getting back together.
Yeah.
And I said that with, conviction, and I was very serious about that. And she understood that. So when this time of turbulence came in our relationship, I reminded her of that. And I said, we're obviously not seeing eye to eye. We're kind of out of whack here. Mm-hmm. She was kind of wanting to call it quits already. And then I told her, I understand your perspective. I would love to have, a conversation with our mentors at the time, and people that have been married and get some counseling from them and all of that. Because if we do break up, we're not getting back together, no matter what happens. So obviously she knew that I wasn't kidding. And, I like to think of myself as a man of his word. Mm-hmm. And she said, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. And sure enough, we sat down with, our authorities at the time, our mentors, and they kind of calibrated us. They tore her up and said, this is not how it works. This is not how relationships work. Uh-huh. You can't be expecting him to bring you flowers and do all these things, Disney type expectations. And Ivan, you need to freaking step it up some.
Bring some flowers.
Bring some flowers once in a while, right? That doesn't excuse you. Like send her the loving text message, uh-huh. Give her what she needs, what her love language is. And I'll never forget, she bought me this 5 love language book, and I read it. That was probably one of the first books that I read for a long time before she gave it to me. And it wasn't all rainbows and butterfly with us from the beginning. Mm-hmm. We did have that. However, we were both submissive to what God was trying to do and what He was trying to correct in us. And then, dude, like legit, after that conversation, it was the best relationship, right? Because again, we had our different upbringings. We were bringing different things to the table, and we just needed to get a reality check. And then I call it legit a calibration, because that's really what it was in our minds.
Yeah.
And then to this day, we have the best relationship because of it.
Work through the hard times.
Work through the hard times.
I love it. I love it. I think that's in every relationship where you have to figure those things out.
Yeah.
Like everybody goes that way.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
For different reasons, but it's okay. And I think you saying like, we're not going to do that, from the beginning, it sets that standard of like, again, it's different from culture. We're not doing this weird relationship. Like we're not doing that. Like either this is what it is or it's not. And if it's not, great. Like we're fine. Yeah. But if it is, there's that moment of like, are we going to fight for it? And you two chose to fight, not alone, but with people.
Yep.
You went back to the source of good counsel, good godly maturity that could sit down high level and look into the situation and be like, and I think a lot of people miss that.
Yes.
Like they wait for the counseling to come when they've decided to be married. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we're engaged, so let's go get some biblical counseling. It's like, nah, man, you should have been being counseled along the way.
Yeah. So
that if this is real, you're already setting the foundation. And if it isn't real, someone has that authority to speak into your lives and be like, y'all know that y'all should probably break up, right?
Right. Right.
This is not it.
And the funny thing is that because I was coming from a place where, again, I didn't feel like I needed to have a girlfriend, a wife at the time. Like I'm coming from a place of like, if this isn't the will of God, I don't want it to work out. I think she's beautiful. I think she'll make a beautiful mom one day and all these different things. but I'm ready to walk away from it if it's not God's will.
Right.
Whereas, dudes are soft these days. So if a girl starts to tell them and they're infatuated and in love and all these things, and they're not counting on whether or not it is the will of God, but they're going based on their flesh and how fat her butt is.
Yeah.
Let's keep it 100.
Like, oh man, let's.
You know what I'm talking
We got to
about?
make this thing happen.
So we got to make this happen. Like, no, baby, no, wait. You sure you want to do this? Like, I'll give you some time to think about it. And no, dude, you should have a prayer life that you should count on first and foremost. You should have a relationship with God that then gives you the authority and assurance and be able to know what value you bring to the table.
Yeah.
To then act on what God is telling you to do. So I think that because I came from that place, and I'm still to this day, I'm very much like that. My wife says that I'm weird, and that, in the sense that I guess the right word is careless, but it's not. It's like I'm not moved by many things, right? If it's something that I can't control, I pay very little attention to, right? Like, for instance, perfect example that maybe some people will relate. Those group chat trips that everybody wants to take, that they're in the group chat like, we should go skiing in winter.
Yeah. I usually turn those off.
And do those, do all these different things, and all these plans are happening. Like, oh my God, yes, we can get this Airbnb, and they're sending Airbnb links, and they're sending the excursions that they can do. And it's a whole thing, and everybody's so submerged into it, and it never happens. Right?
True. Yeah.
For me, how I calibrate it is, or how I go about it is like, hey guys, we are going here, my wife and I. If any of you would like to join, that would be amazing. If you don't, it's all good. We're still going anyways. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, whatever, it is I can't control y'all, but I need to I got to go live my life.
I see why you and Ryan are friends. I do. I get it. It's so funny because all the guys in the group that we have are very much like that.
Yeah.
Very, very much like that, because I've talked with Brian, I've talked with Justin, and it'll be like, what are our wives talking about? Like, y'all know, what month is that? That's WealthCon month. Y'all know we ain't going to that. What about July? All right, that'll probably work. Like, we are that is so funny. And I love that we can be that way, and our wives can still really,
love us
honestly, they love us. They don't care. They love us through, and they're like, "Oh, they coming." If we all put it's a thing.
Yeah.
And I love that because it allows. I feel more confident in our marriage to see you all confident in your marriage and how you do things. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're not crazy for having things like that we do and having those standards. Yeah, and it works for the both of you. And me and Jasmine's quirk works for us, and Ryan and Mindy and Justin. Yeah, like everyone's individual relationships work the way that they're supposed to. Right. But we all have that central thing of like, man, God is here and we're going to figure this out, even in the midst of our crazy humanity. Yeah, we actually made it a thing now where every year our tradition is, my wife and I's tradition is, we have, I don't know if you saw this, because I think we posted it, but we have a jar that has little papers that she wrote every location that we want to go to. Mm-hmm. And then this one jar has all of these locations that are abroad, right? International locations. You got the Dubai, you got Thailand, you got, Turks and Caicos and all these different things. So at the beginning of the year, on January 1st, when the ball drops, our tradition is to pick something from there. And then now all of our friends, or a lot of our friends, are waiting for us to draw from the jars to see where we're all going. Oh, because they know, like, that's our thing now. And then every trip never makes it out of the freaking chat. So therefore, Ivan and Nate, Jenny are doing this. Okay, we should tag along because they're going regardless. So we know. Because all these other people are flaky. So if we plan with them, they may not do it. But they know that if Ivan and Jenny say that they're going somewhere, they're going to make it happen. So yeah, we got a jar for international and then another jar for like domestic. What's the international trip this year? Turks and Caicos. Ooh. Yep. Okay, when is the date? We don't know yet. You don't know, but you're going. We're 2024 is happening. Some point, yeah. All right. Well, Jenny's been planning since January 2nd. So. Oh yeah, it's happening. That's happening. Pack the bags. Pack the bags. Yeah, we're trying to recruit a couple people, to see if they want to come. It is an expensive one, but I think it'll be fun. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's it. Okay. We're drawing Jasmine.
Wherever it
Don't
is.
you dare. I'm gonna get home. It's gonna be a jar. She's gonna be like, so the jar. I'll be like, let me see your phone. Turn this chat off. Turn this chat off. And we're blocking Ivan and Jenny on Instagram so that you can't see any of their stuff. Funny reels, but you guys are influencing my wife. We have a jar now. Oh,
yeah, it's good influence.
It's funny because we have a jar, and it's more for like date night stuff.
Okay.
And I forget where we got the idea from. But when we first did it, we were living in Jackson, Tennessee. And so like some of the things that were on like the popsicle sticks, we draw them out and I'm like, we live in Jackson.
Yeah.
Everything closes at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. There's no way we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And so it's like, now we live here in Vegas, the entertainment mecca.
Yep.
And I'm like, where you want to go? Where you want to go?
Outback.
Yeah. Yes. Outback. Now we got all this stuff and we're still drawing. I'm going to have to take that woman to Outback.
She's been wanting to go.
Listen, if y'all are in the chat watching this, I just need y'all to put like, did you take him to Outback?
Yeah.
Did you take Jasmine to Outback yet? Has that happened? Because I need to take Jasmine to Outback. She's going to love
People
me
sleep on
so
Outback.
much for it. She'll be like, you want to go? It's like, yeah, I want to go to Outback.
That's hilarious, man.
Man, thank you for talking.
Absolutely,
coming
man.
on and talking to me.
It's my pleasure, bro.
This is great. I feel like I've gotten a chance to really know some of the background of who Ivan is. This is your life is a life of prayer.
Mm.
And when you started the conversation off with, my mom prayed, I wasn't sure if that was going to like follow all the way through, but it's amazing how your life is truly a life of prayer. And God does speak to you. You get your downloads when you're awake.
Yes.
You get
100%,
all of your downloads.
especially when I'm in the shower.
Yeah, he lets you sleep.
Yeah.
He lets you sleep at night so that you can get wide awake vision. Yeah. You don't get dreams, you get visions.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I get them a lot. And it's usually not just for me. I get ideas for other people and, text them like, dude, that makes so much sense. Let's go. So, I love that. That's one, I guess, a gifting. I would call it a gifting that God gives me, not only ideas for myself, a lot of them that I I get impatient with and act on them sooner than I need to, especially when it comes to like business and stuff like that. But, the phrase of this year that I've chose, because usually we have a word or a phrase. The phrase that I have is laser focus for this year, because I've always been kind of like scatterbrained and all of that. And I've been way better than I used to be, because I'll literally be having 2 companies at the same time that I started and all these things.
Yeah.
Where now I'm very much, now I have more responsibilities with, a family and all of that. So I can't be reckless. Back then, take all the risks. It's all good. If you're in your 20s, you don't have a family, do everything you need to do.
Go ahead. You got it.
Do it.
Yeah.
But I love that, I'm able to hear God even in the times where I don't deserve to hear him, even in the times where I fall short, even in the times where, I could have been a better Christian, could have been a better husband, could have been a better dad. Yeah. He's still there. And, I attribute that to of course, the prayer and the accumulation of prayer and all these things and the prayers that come from our family members. My mom to this day, she's very much continues to pray, and I just love that God is so faithful in that even in the times where we fall short, he's still there. And it's whether or not we're able to turn off the outside distractions and voices and all, because God is always speaking. This is what I tell people. It's like, he's speaking to you right now. The thing is that we have so many things. We're so caught up with our lives and the things that we didn't do and the money that we didn't make and the job that we're whatever, that we forget that he's talking to us all day, every day. And the reason why I get these downloads, and it's not, a coincidence that they happen in quiet times, when I'm in the shower, when I'm in bed laying down. My wife will tell you, it's like I had issues with falling asleep because my days are always so on the go and thinking about this and this and this and this that it's never really necessarily quiet. I'm always doing something. And then when I'm laying in bed, God is finally you calm down.
Stop moving.
And great. I can tell you.
That's what I got for you.
And then I have to pull my phone and say, okay, what? I write it down. Yeah. So that's, and she's a testament. I'm not even fronting. Like there's times that now I'm way better because I'm living a healthier lifestyle too, and all of that when it comes to like working out, eating all these and better and all that.
Yeah.
So I don't struggle with falling asleep. But yeah, I be getting downloads.
Is that word of knowledge? Might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's I'm like,
Yeah.
it's word of knowledge.
Yeah.
You just get, ooh, how does this work?
Yeah.
This is how this works. I don't know why I know why this works like this, but I know that this works like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's definitely, you operate in that at a high level.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. No. And I don't think I've harnessed it enough. Like I know it's like a muscle, right? It's like faith. Faith is a muscle. You kind of build it.
Exercise it.
You got to exercise it. And I know that comes with more, practice and exercising it and seeking God more, like, and hearing him and really being in tune and remaining righteous and not being in sin and all these things is going to contribute to a higher level of, being able to listen to God and all these different things. So, I'm excited to see what God does in this season of our lives where we're a little bit more public with our own personal lives and, what God is doing in our lives and all these things, and see how we can help and empower other people in the areas that we feel that we can.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things, even with coaching, with Airbnb, like I can't teach my students to do anything that I haven't done. So that's why I'll get outside coaches, competitors, but I'll get coaches, guest coaches to come in and speak in the areas that they know about.
Oh, I'm
right?
thankful for that, because they'd be like, so I'm thinking about getting Airbnb.
Yeah.
I got nothing for you.
There you go.
Go watch this call.
Yeah, exactly.
I was talking about it. And
So by the same token,
I don't know. Just keep watching.
By the same token, I want to get people in our the podcast that can shed light in different areas of love and cash flow.
Yeah.
So that they can speak life into these individuals that are wanting to take it to the next level, including you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you for that opportunity.
No, if you haven't seen that podcast with the Lees, man, just get some tissue paper.
You're gonna cry.
You might want to get some of that.
I thought, you know what? You start talking about your mom, and I was like, we just said we were.
Yeah, I held it down though. You saw that?
If he starts crying, it's one thing when we're crying and our wives are there. If it's just, we're just sitting, they're like, what?
It's just us
what
two.
happened on this? But Ryan's walking by. Why are they crying in here? It's a thing, guys. We had to keep it together.
We made it work.
We got through the moment, but I felt it. I was like, "Oh no,
it's coming!
Oh no, we gotta."
Yeah.
What is that? What movie is that? The kids' movie where he's like, he starts to cry. The black guy, he's like, "You get back in there." And the tear goes back in his eye. Is it? Oh man, it might be like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Oh, is it?
It's a kids' movie. He's about to cry. He's like, "You get back in."
Let us know in the comments.
And then it cries. If you have kids, if you don't have kids, then
you're
missing out on life, because the things that you.
Or they're not there yet to have kids yet. Like,
yeah. If you're not there yet, one day, and then you'll just revisit all this stuff from your childhood.
Yes,
but I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me, brother.
Oh, this not gonna be the last time.
Let's do it.
No, we're gonna have to do a follow up on this.
Let's get it.
Especially once the podcast has had some time to breathe and go.
Yep.
We're gonna do some. If you have time for us,
what do you mean? I'm here, bro. What do you mean?
Well, Wealthy Kingdom. Thank you, as always. This would just be two guys cutting it up. I mean, we would probably still sit in front of a camera, even if you guys weren't here, and just talk.
Yep.
But it's better for us to do this with you. So thank you all for being with us, rocking with us through the podcast. Wherever you're at in life, I hope that this episode blessed you. I hope that you have taken something from it and you're like, okay, these guys are crazy, but they got a little bit of wisdom. They got a little bit of knowledge. There's something in there. I could probably do something with that secret place part. Definitely, if you're interested in like Airbnbs and what that looks like Ivan is amazing. Him and his wife both have built an amazing business. And so you can definitely reach out to him to see how it is that he can help you to be able to get your Airbnbs off the ground. And make sure that you go subscribe to their podcast as well, because I believe we have a great podcast, but I believe that they have a great one as well. And there's a place for everyone in this podcasting sphere. And I know if you got some good knowledge out of this, then you're definitely going to get some great knowledge out of their podcast. So subscribe to them both, and then we'll see you the next time we drop another episode. I love you. Thank you all for joining us.